We got married yesterday. The words hit me like a sucker punch to the gut, the kind that knocks the wind out of you and leaves you doubled over, gasping. My phone was still pressed to my ear, but for a solid 5 seconds I couldn't make a sound. My daughter-in-law, no, apparently my daughter-in-law now, was laughing on the other end, light and breezy, the way people do when they think they've just pulled off the best surprise in the world. My son, Alex, was in the background yelling something about cake and champagne, his voice muffled like he had his head halfway inside a refrigerator. Yesterday. They got married yesterday. Not next June like we'd been planning for 14 months. Not in the garden at the country club with the string quartet and the peonies I'd already put a non-refundable deposit on. Not with me walking Alex down the aisle because his dad ran off when he was 7 and I'd always promised I'd be the one to give him away if the day ever came. Yesterday. In some courthouse or chapel or Vegas nightmare I hadn't even been invited to witness. Mom, Katie said, her voice softening a little. Are you still there? I swallowed hard enough I was surprised she didn't hear it through the phone. Yeah, honey, I'm here. Just processing. We wanted to keep it simple. She rushed on, like if she talked fast enough I wouldn't have time to be hurt. It just felt right. We woke up yesterday and looked at each other and said why wait? So we called the county clerk, found a slot at 3:30, grabbed 2 strangers off the street to be witnesses, and boom. Married. I'm Mrs. Catherine Malone now. Mrs. Catherine Malone. My mother-in-law name, handed out like a party favor while I was at the grocery store picking between ribeye and filet for a dinner they were apparently never coming to. Alex finally wrestled the phone away from her. Mom, don't kill us, okay? We still want the big party next summer. This was just us. We'll explain everything when we see you tonight. Tonight. They were coming over tonight like this was any other Friday and not the day they'd detonated a bomb in the middle of my carefully laid plans. I managed something that might have passed for agreement, hung up, and stood in the middle of my kitchen holding a package of steaks that now felt ridiculous in my hands. The peony deposit. The custom invitations I'd already addressed. The mother of the groom dress hanging in my closet in 3 possible sizes because I'd been too nervous to settle on one. The speech I'd been writing and rewriting for months, trying to find the perfect way to say I'd loved this girl like my own from the first time Alex brought her home. All of it, pointless now. I dropped the steaks on the counter, walked straight to the liquor cabinet, and poured myself a whiskey at 4 in the afternoon. Then I sat down on the floor right there between the island and the fridge, back against the cabinets, and cried like a damn fool. Part 1. The thing about being a single mom is that you learn early how to keep your shit together when the world tilts sideways. You work 2 jobs so your kid can play travel soccer. You smile through parent-teacher conferences when the teacher says he's spirited, which is code for he just threw a chair. You date exactly 2 men in 18 years because the bar is Olympic high and nobody ever quite clears it. You do it all so your son grows up knowing at least one parent never left. Alex turned out okay. Better than okay. Tall, kind, funny in the dry way that makes girls text him at 2 a.m. He got scholarships, graduated summa, landed a job at an engineering firm downtown that pays him enough to buy organic almond milk without looking at the price. And then he met Katie. Katie with the wild curly hair and the laugh. That takes up space. Katie who finished nursing school while working nights at the children's hospital and still found time to bake Alex birthday cakes shaped like Star Wars characters. Katie who called me, ma'am, the first time we met and then hugged me so hard my spine cracked when I told her to knock that off and call me Jen. I loved her immediately, fiercely, in the way you love someone who looks at your child like he hung the moon. When Alex proposed last Christmas, on one knee in the snow outside my house because he knows I'm a sucker for romance, I screamed louder than Katie did. I started a secret Pinterest board that night. I offered to pay for everything because Katie's parents are gone and I had the money from selling the old house after the divorce that never actually happened because Alex's dad disappeared before paperwork. We were going to do it right. And now they'd gone and done it wrong. I was still on the floor when my best friend Marla called. Why do you sound like you just found out your dog died? She asked instead of hello. Because my son just eloped, I said, and then the whole story poured out between hiccups and fresh tears. Marla listened without interrupting, which is how I knew she was furious on my behalf. Those little shits, she said when I finished. I love them, but those little shits. I don't even know what to do with myself. You're going to shower, Put on something that makes you look expensive, and when they walk through that door tonight you're going to smile like you knew all along and it's exactly what you would have wanted. Then, when they're drunk on their own smug happiness, you drop the hammer. What hammer? The one that says you're hurt, Jennifer. You're allowed to be hurt. You don't have to pretend this is fine. I laughed, wet and ugly. Since when do we get to be heard out loud? Since right now. Start practicing. They showed up at 7 on the dot, same as always. Alex first, carrying a bakery box tied with red string, Katie behind him clutching a bottle of Prosecco and looking like she was walking into a job interview she wasn't sure she wanted. I opened the door and they both hesitated on the porch, reading my face. I must have looked calmer than I felt because Alex broke first. Mom, he started, stepping forward like he was going to hug me, then thinking better of it. We're so sorry. I held up a hand. Come in, shoes off. You're tracking fall leaves on my hardwood. They obeyed like scolded teenagers. Katie's eyes were huge. She'd changed into a simple white sundress, not even a real wedding dress, just something she probably already owned, and there was a new thin gold band on her finger that caught the light when she tucked her hair behind her ear. I took the Prosecco from her, set it on the console table, and then did the thing I'd promised myself I wouldn't do. I started crying again. Not loud, just silent tears sliding down my cheeks while I looked at the two of them standing in my foyer like they were waiting for punishment. Katie broke first. She dropped her purse and threw her arms around me. Jen, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. We didn't think. Alex wrapped around both of us, tall enough that his chin rested on top of my head the way it had since he was 14. Mom, please don't hate us. I don't hate you, I managed into Katie's hair that smelled like coconut shampoo. I missed it. I missed the whole thing. I didn't get to see you promise forever to each other. I didn't get to cry in the front row or dance with my son or toast the girl who finally made him settle down. I got a phone call. They both started talking at once, apologies tumbling over explanations. How the big wedding had started feeling like a performance. How Katie's anxiety had spiked every time we added another detail. How they'd woken up Thursday morning and the forecast said rain for the next 10 days straight and Katie had said, what if we just didn't wait for perfect weather? How they'd driven downtown in Alex's Jeep with the windows down and married each other in a room that smelled like bleach with a judge who kept calling them, you two kids. We want the party, Alex said, pulling back to look at me. We still want June. We want you to walk me down the aisle. We want the peonies and the string quartet and Dad's empty chair that we'll leave empty on purpose. This wasn't instead of, Mom. It was, sooner. Katie was crying too now, mascara smudging under her eyes. I grew up without a mom to plan my wedding, she whispered. I didn't know how much I needed you there until I realized you weren't. That broke me all over again. We ended up on the living room couch, the three of us tangled together like we were 20 years younger and I was still the center of their universe. I opened the Prosecco with shaking hands. Alex cut into the bakery box and revealed a small white cake with, Mr. and Mrs. scrawled in messy blue icing because apparently the bakery had been closing and that was the only one left. We ate it with plastic forks straight from the box, passing it around like contraband. They showed me pictures on their phones, Katie signing the license with her tongue sticking out in concentration, Alex kissing her against the ugly paneled wall outside the clerk's office, the two strangers who'd witnessed grinning like they'd won the lottery. They looked stupidly happy. I hated how much I loved it. At some point the conversation turned practical. Deposits, cancellations, whether we could move the big celebration to an anniversary party instead. Katie fell asleep against my shoulder somewhere around the second bottle, her new ring cutting into my arm. Alex carried her to the guest room like he'd been practicing for years. When he came back downstairs, it was just the two of us. I'm sorry I took that from you, he said quietly, sitting on the coffee table so we were knee to knee. I keep thinking about you walking me down the aisle and how I stole that moment. You didn't steal it, I told him. You just rescheduled the moment. We'll do it louder next time. With better cake. He laughed, then sobered. You're not mad. I'm a lot of things. Mad is in there, but mostly I'm proud, and a little heartbroken, and mostly proud. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead to mine the way he did when he was little and the world felt too big. Love you, Mom. Love you more, kid. Part 2. The next morning I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Katie humming in my kitchen. She was wearing one of Alex's old high school t-shirts and a pair of my yoga pants, standing at the stove flipping pancakes like she hadn't detonated my entire emotional landscape 12 hours earlier. "Morning, Mama," she said when she saw me, and the nickname hit different now. Official. I accepted a mug of coffee doctored exactly the way I like it, oat milk, one Splenda, and watched her move around my kitchen like she belonged there. Because she did. She always had. Alex stumbled in 10 minutes later, hair sticking up in every direction, and stole a pancake straight from the griddle. Katie smacked his hand with the spatula. Domestic as hell. Married. We spent the weekend replanning everything. Not canceling, reimagining. The country club was thrilled to shift the date to the following June for their 1-year anniversary. The florist cried when I told her the story and gave us a discount, for love. The dress still fit, thank God for stress eating in moderation. We turned the invitations into, "Come celebrate our surprise marriage" cards with a photo of them outside the courthouse looking like delinquents who'd just gotten away with something. I kept the original speech. Rewrote parts of it. Added a line about how sometimes love doesn't wait for peonies or perfect weather or even for your mom to be ready. Sometimes love just grabs you by the hand and says run. June came back around faster than any of us expected. This time when the day arrived, I was ready. Hair done, makeup waterproof, dress the middle size because I'd landed exactly where I wanted to be. Katie's bridesmaids, all nurses from the hospital, wore the pale blue we'd picked out 18 months earlier. Alex stood at the end of the aisle in a tux that cost more than my first car, shifting from foot to foot like he had when he was 5 and waiting for the school bus. The string quartet started Pachelbel because of course we kept that. I took my son's arm, felt him trembling just enough to know this mattered. "Still want to run?" I whispered. He grinned down at me, eyes already red. "With her, always." We walked, slowly, every step deliberate. Guests stood, phones up, tears flowing. Katie waited under the arbor we'd built together last summer, white dress this time, veil long enough to trail in the grass. She was crying before I even reached the halfway mark. When we got to the front, the officiant, a friend of theirs who'd gotten ordained online for the occasion, asked the question I'd been dreaming of since Alex was born. Who gives this man to be married to this woman? I squeezed Alex's arm one last time, then stepped forward and placed his hand in Katie's. "His mother does," I said, loud enough for the back row to hear. "And she's never been prouder." They kissed before they were told to. The crowd roared. Someone popped champagne too early and it sprayed across 3 rows of guests. Perfect chaos. At the reception I gave the speech. Told the courthouse story, the whiskey on the kitchen floor story, the cake from a box story. I told them how sometimes the best things in life don't wait for the party we planned. Sometimes they just show up in a bleach-smelling room with 2 strangers and a judge who can't pronounce your middle name. Then I raised my glass. To Alex and Katie Malone, I said, who got married yesterday and again today. May your life always be this beautifully, perfectly impatient. Later, when the dance floor was packed and the peonies were wilting in the heat and my shoes were long gone, Alex found me by the bar. "Mom," he said, pulling me into the crowd for the mother-son dance we'd rescheduled. "Thank you for everything." The song was "Sweet Child O' Mine," because he's always had terrible taste in slow songs. I laughed into his shoulder. "Thank you," I whispered back, "for letting me catch up." Over his shoulder I saw Katie watching us, veil tossed aside, hair wild, eyes shining. She mouthed the words I'd been waiting a year and a half to hear. "Love you, Mama." I mouthed them back, and somewhere between the chorus and the guitar solo, I realized something that should have been obvious all along. They hadn't taken anything from me. They'd given me 2 weddings. One quiet and secret and theirs alone. One loud and wild and ours together. Both perfect. Both mine.